It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Rams post-game show on Compas on the Beat. My name is Victor Corona, a.k.a. Vic the Producer. With me is Gilbert Manzano from the Daily News and the OC Register. Gil, how does it feel to have the preseason finally be over?
Victor, I'm excited. Finally, it's over. 3 preseason games and we're on to the regular season. Bills, Rams, September 8th. What a showdown. But Victor, we can't jump ahead too far because I'm here joining you after that game. I guess they lost, right? Who cares about the score? 16-7, Bengals beat the Rams. But we're here to talk about 53-man roster projections. Victor, I have a story already at the OC Register with my evaluations. I'm kind of like a scout out there. My guess, it's not a true 53-man roster, but it's just my estimation of what I saw for the whole summer. It's out there, OC Register, LA Daily News. But Victor, there's so much to dissect from that game. You were watching from home. I was too. I was in Cincinnati. But boy, that 53-man roster is going to be tough for me to figure out in the next couple of days because the deadline is Tuesday. I probably should have done the roster already, but I'm going to give myself one more day because Sean McVay is talking to the media tomorrow, and then I'll get more questions in there, and then I'll have a real kind of sense of
it. Watching this game was kind of hard. I'll be honest with you. Just the one thing that did stand out for me was watching Bryce Perkins take all the snaps today, and Wolford getting injured with his and you'll talk about this when we get more into it, but. Bryce Perkins was for me one of the guys that stood out for me today. What about you? What stood out? I know it wasn't a pretty game to watch, but what were some of your takeaways from today's game?
Yeah, it started off pretty ugly, and let me kind of back it up a little bit because Bryce Perkins started the game. He had the full game again, kind of like the preseason opener against the Chargers. As we talked about, Victor, he is in a competition with John Wolford for number 2. But there's no John Wolford out there. He didn't play against the Bengals. He had a broken fingernail on his thumb finger from the throwing hat, and it wasn't from the fight, by the way, Victor. Not from the fight. No broken fingernails from the fight. That was the day before. But I think Sean McVay said that he didn't want him messing with his delivery on the throw. So he said, you know what, John, don't play. But I think that still means that there's still a competition. And Bryce Perkins went out there and he flashed the second half. The first half was pretty clunky. There was two, 3 and outs to start the drive. They got going once he threw a pass to that guy again, Lance McCutcheon, who had another great game. And then, but you saw.
We'll talk about.
We'll get into.
We'll talk about.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, we all want to talk about Lance McCutcheon, but Bryce Perkins did enough for me to at least earn a roster spot. 3 quarterbacks. I don't know if it's enough to say, hey, John Wolford, you're out of here. We're keeping 2 because it was the first half was kind of shaky. The second half, though, you saw it. The mobility, the way to create plays off scripted. Accuracy and just kind of provide a spark. And every time you hear Sean McVay talk about Bryce Perkins, his eyes light up. And I know he's kind of an energetic guy. He's like, Bryce Perkins, man, that guy could play. I'm excited about him. So he's definitely on the roster. I feel good about that. I'm just not convinced that he did enough to make it 2 quarterbacks in that field. So I think John Wolford could go to sleep tonight with the bad finger and feel okay that he has a roster spot for next week.
So you don't think that Wolford missing the game today affects any of the decisions we see come Tuesday?
Maybe, but not too much. I think John Wolford, he's done enough in the past to have trust from Sean McVay. But say him and Les Snead and the scouts and the coaches are talking and like, man, we really want to keep this guy like a Jonah Williams. I almost said Jonah Hill, by the way, Victor. AJ or Curry. A Jake Hummel, like we really want to keep these guys, but we can't find a roster spot. And then you start thinking, well, the Bryce Perkins guy is doing pretty well. Maybe we should go to a quarterback. I think that's where it starts affecting conversation. But I think Sean McVay is going into it right now like, nah, we got to keep John Wolford. We got to keep Bryce Perkins. But maybe something that we were both kind of trying to figure out. Maybe he does surpass him as a number 2. Maybe he goes that way. It goes Perkins and Wolford, but all 3 stay on. It's a tricky combination, but I really feel strongly that all 3 make it, Victor.
Yeah, reading your story right off the bat here, I know you talked about Lance McCutcheon earlier, and I kind of want to get into it because you talked about, you're not saying that they're going to keep 8 receivers, but you did talk about it. So do you think Lance McCutcheon made the team now, or do you think he might? Yeah.
Victor, I cut you off in the pregame kind of meeting between you and I because I'm like, wait, I'm not sure about that spot or that spot. this one, I was going to cut you off again. I was going to say, nah, this for sure 8 receivers. I'm convinced that these guys have done enough. They're going to keep a whopping 8 receivers. Victor, I don't know if you can recall the last time a team kept 8 receivers on the final roster. It's a lot, but maybe I shouldn't get too confident, but I think Jacob Harris has done enough to be the 8th man. Lance McCutcheon just had another performance to be the 7th guy at least, or 8th, one of those 2 spots. This guy's making plays as a wide receiver. Yeah, he has to figure out the special teams. Yeah, he has to figure out the blocking. Yeah, he has to figure out 2-minute drills, all that stuff. But this guy's a playmaker, sensational wide receiver. He made more plays out there. And here's a couple more reasons why I feel confident to keep 8 wide receivers. The GM blessed need went on the TV broadcast, and they asked him about Lance McCutcheon. He said, that guy's made it easy for us. And we know Sean McVay loves his wide receivers. That, for me, was a telling sign. And then Sean McVay spoke about Lance at the presser. And he spoke about Bryce Perkins and Lance together, saying, those guys have done everything right. They've done everything we've asked for. They made a strong case. They made it easy for us. I won't jump ahead and say they're on the roster, but, it'll be hard not to keep them on there. So I think Lance McCutcheon is safe. I think Jacob Harris is safe. It wasn't the game that Lance McCutcheon has, but Jacob Harris, he could block. He could play. Everything I told you about Lance McCutcheon, he does. Special team, second-year guy, a big body. They're shorter tight ends. He could help out in that situation. I think Jacob Harris will find his way on the roster, but Lance McCutcheon is definitely a playmaker. And Victor, what a strong summer for him. I think people don't care about preseason stats, but he led the preseason, I think, in receiving yards.
Yeah, one of the players that I thought might cut into the whole 7 or the 8 wide receivers was Carter, because they talked about him on the broadcast as a 3rd tight end. But like you said, I just don't see, especially with someone like Jacob Harris, you have to give him a shot to make this team with what he provides on special teams. We always talk about this, special teams is such a big deal. I know people don't care. They're not sexy for people to watch, but when it comes to it, that's where you can lose games. And it's very important for when you're managing a team.
And that's why guys like Ben Skoranek and Brandon Powell, who are also in the wide receiver rotation, part of the 8, are not playing the preseason. They're so valuable in special teams that they're done their job. They've done the dirty work. Brandon Powell is a specialist returner. Ben Skoranek is a great player in special teams, but also contributes as a wide receiver. So look at a guy like our boy Jake Funky Town. He kind of struggled in the preseason in terms of yards per carry. He was a star in all 3 games, but he has a role because he's good at special teams. He is one of their best players on special teams. So it's that time of year, Victor. But that 8 is going to really affect it, especially the rest of the roster at other positions. Like, I can't wrap my mind between a Jake Hummel or a Jonah Williams, a Adrian Curry, a Jake Garvey. Hopefully I'm saying his last name properly. These guys who are kind of that roster bubble. And even like a guy like Kira Thomas, who wasn't really on my radar until today. He had 3 tackles for loss, I think, and a sack. Undrafted rookie outside linebacker. Like, maybe he's making a push. It's going to be a long chance, but there's 4 or 5 guys. I'm like, man, I got to think about this again.
Yeah, and one of the things that I kind of take away, like, don't be discouraged that they're going to lose some of these players. Like, remember, practice squads now are bigger. They can retain some of these players, so not everybody's gonna go to other teams. Yeah, if they, like, someone like Bryce Perkins gets cut, he's gonna get picked up right away. But some of these guys who are on their are undrafted or were drafted late, they're probably gonna get picked up on the practice squad because you can protect 5 players as far as I know, right?
Yeah, I think it's like a weekly thing for the practice squad. They protect people. It extended from 14 to 16, so you have plenty of roster spots on the practice squad, Victor. But you're right. It's also who put a lot of tape out there that you're worried about that they might get claimed on waivers. Like Jake Hummel, by the way, a stat that Sean McVay dropped on the inside linebacker rookie Jake Hummel was he has a Rams preseason record for tackles, which is 21.
Oh, wow.
So to have that much good film out there, somebody might take a chance. He's a drafted rookie, but like, okay, now we got to keep Jake Hummel. Jonah Williams is not a guy who was drafted, but he put good tape out there. Adrian Curry didn't have the type of film that you want that maybe somebody will take him, but he was drafted this year, 7th round draft pick. So I don't know who to pick between those guys. And Jake Garvis keeps getting cut, but keeps finding a way back on the roster because he went from safety to linebacker and he looks more comfortable. So these bubble guys, man, it's going to be tough, but maybe you can't keep them all because of what we talked about with the 8 wide receivers and the 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately because what like we talked about during the preview show, linebackers isn't with the whole everybody's using the big Fangio system, and you don't need that many linebackers anymore. I mean, you need smaller linebackers. The reason you keep more linebackers is more for special teams, like we talked about. So that kind of makes it hard for someone like him, like Hummel and Gervais, to make the team. I think there's some of the players where you can have them come back or put them on the practice squad. I just don't think with it's not a linebacker is no longer a position of need. I think it's kind of becoming kind of like the running back position where you can if you have one in Bobby Wagner, you don't need like 3 or 4 unless you need them for
Yeah.
special teams, like
That,
they're special team aces.
that's the thing that makes it tough though, Victor. Like I'm blanking on the name, Christian Roseboom I'll get the name right. Uh, and Jake Hummel, the linebackers, they do well on special teams, but you know they might not be valuable as inside linebackers because Bobby Wagner and Ernest Jones are doing great jobs, but they make it hard because you can't forget about special teams, Victor. So it's going to be tough. You know, hopefully you guys check out my story at the OC Register. My evaluations of where the roster stands after tonight. I posted it pretty quick. It will definitely change. I have another story coming up of what we learned. And Victor, before I head out, I want to make sure we touch on this. And for my what we learned story, I kind of go off of things that I didn't mention in my game story because I'm waiting for interviews. I'm waiting for locker room interviews, and I kind of want things to kind of settle down before I give you my thoughts. So you know, I'm gonna touch more on McCutcheon. I'm gonna touch more on Chris Garrett, but the actual thing that we learned that wasn't from the game was Aaron Donald and the rest of the players who were part of the brawl will not. Well, I guess they were disciplined. It sounds like they weren't disciplined, but
They
they were
he's
handled with it.
right.
And
McVay said that they handle it internally, so
which
we'll
sounds
take.
like there wasn't much. It was a slap on the wrist. So I want to make sure before I head out, Victor, and maybe promote some stuff before I leave. Aaron Donald has been handled internally, whatever that means, in house. And Sean McVay was saying, well, I'm not going to tell you what it was, what discipline it was. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was a small fine. I don't know. Maybe something happened. I don't know, Victor. But just to touch on it, that is what we learned that Aaron Donald would not have a stiff discipline for him.
Right. So make sure you go and read all his stories. We're gonna have this for you guys after every game. Our first game will be against the Bills. We'll try to get Gilbert on right after the game, and he's got some writing commitments, so he's probably gonna give us about 10 to 15 minutes depending on his time. And we'll get into it. We'll have this kind of thing for you guys. We'll be able to talk to him, and he'll give us his reactions, his takeaways, and some of the things he saw. And yeah, so Gil, just tell everybody where they can find and kind of tell people what we have coming up on Compas.
Yeah, you definitely just follow me on Twitter if you want to make it easy at gmonsound24 or subscribe to my work at the OC Register LA Daily News. Check out the website. Subscribe to one of the newsletters that we have at the newspaper. Kevin Modesti has a great newsletter where he mentions my stories and the rest of my coworkers. I think we also have a Rams newsletter, Horns Blast. But we're also doing a lot here. My job is pretty good about kind of combining both the video side here at Compas on the Beat with my story. So yeah, we're gonna do more. We're gonna have a name for the podcast in the near future. We're getting closer. We're about to sign the contract if there is a contract. We're just having fun with that. But yeah, we have a lot of content on Compas on the Beat. For those who have subscribed to Combat Compas, thank you for that. Those who already have subscribed for the longest on the regular Compas on the Beat with Fernando Ramirez, thank you for that. And we're gonna have probably some Charger stuff. If you like both teams, which is kind of rare, or you just like the NFL, or you have fantasy football players on the Chargers and the Rams, check out Fernando Ramirez's work and Dan and Diego with their Chargers content. So, Victor, on that note, I got to head out. It's time for me to write. I know I'm not in the press box, but this was fun to kind of get those thoughts out before I start writing again. So, on that note, it's on to the 53-man roster. Ya nos vamos, pues, vámonos.